appreciated. And then tonight is a bit of a review. Certainly something I do on the professional side of things with the business. Me and Patrick review a lot and always sort of look back over, not only obviously weekly, but definitely a monthly thing. So I feel like when it's coming to obviously our nutrition and our training at this time of year, we've hit January with the ground running, trying to navigate ourselves through the lockdown. I thought that this final webinar would be a good thing to do. Would be kind of to review how January's been. For some of you, it might have gone to plan. For some of you, it might have not gone to plan. Either way, like if it's gone to plan, great. If it hasn't gone to plan, well, you've only got an opportunity to maybe review it, think about it, plan ahead, and maybe make some actions for February. Because we're going to be in this position for the next, certainly for the next 4 weeks. So where can we now take control as we move into February? So, and what a lot of the content tonight is I'm actually going to present a couple of things, but it's actually stuff for you to take away and hopefully do in your own time. So if you're interested in kind of moving the needle forward and looking back over the month of January, this sort of next half an hour or so, maybe even a little bit less, it won't be a super long one tonight. There's certainly some valuable content in here. That things that I've taken out from what we do with the business and maybe what we do with some of the nutrition coaching stuff that you can certainly make use of if you feel that doing a little bit of reflection is up your street. So I guess like the first question to ask you tonight is, how has January been? How's it gone for you? Obviously I've had a lot of contact with a lot of the members and it seems that majority of the people have really sort of grabbed January by the balls as best as they can, and and try to focus on whatever it within the realm of health and fitness that we're talking about here. Try to focus on whatever they can. So, how's January been? And on a side note to that, credit for all you guys for actually trying to take some control. It's not the easiest thing to do. So credit to all you guys for taking some control, and credit to myself for managing to get around about 10 or 13 of you to get into the fourth webinar. So I've done something right over the last 4 weeks to hold your attention and keep going with it. So yeah, how's January been? And that's maybe, if you're taking notes or something, that's maybe something you can ponder over the weekend. But really the objective of tonight is just a total reflection. Like I said before, it's not going to be a super long one. It's more just about giving you guys some content and some tools to maybe do use for over the weekend. So why is this useful? Especially at times like this, it's very easy to kind of get bogged down in our emotions and everything that's consuming us. When we do our check-ins on a week-by-week basis, it's very common that the feedback we get from members is they don't put it like this, but they're very much, people feel like they're getting almost consumed by work, or left, right, and center. It's all work, or it's all, there's a lot of things on high heat. So being able to take that time and almost zoom out, metaphorically, be like a helicopter looking over a forest. You want to sort of come up in that helicopter and look over the forest as a whole, and then we can really sort of instead of just standing in front of that single tree in the forest, get up above it and have a look and kind of reflect on what's been done over the last month. Then obviously evaluating what's been good and what's been bad. So maybe having just some honest thought time or writing time is always really useful. And then potentially giving us a little bit of a clarity and focus as we move into the next 4 weeks. And let's not try and jump the gun here. Let's not get too overwhelming with what we're talking about. Let's focus for the immediate future, which is 4 weeks, and then bringing it back week by week. And I think that's the focus I would advise for any sort of reflection is always, right, what can you achieve in the next month, or what would you like to achieve? And then how do you draw back from that? And for some of you guys who have done the workshops over the last few weeks, that's certainly on week 1, that was very much the approach that I took with you to try and get your mindset, hopefully, in the right sort of perspective, as hard as it is, especially at the moment with all the negativity that's going on. So tonight we're going to touch on the elephant and rider. It's actually a behavioral change model. Some of you guys, maybe those who have known me for a while and kind of been involved with my coaching for a while, it's something that I came across when I sort of first came out of uni and started diving into all this sort of stuff, the sort of behavioral change stuff. It's similar to a more popular one called the Chimp Paradox, that's a common book, and I think that will probably resonate with a few of you, the Chimp Paradox. And really what we're looking at here is essentially two systems or two parts to the brain where the rider represents one and the elephant represents another. So let's dive into it a little bit, and it's just to provide some context to behind behavior change, and metaphorically, hopefully the elephant and the rider will make a little bit of sense. So the two sides to our brain, we've got, well, the first side let's look at is the rational side of our brain, and in that case, that is the little rider sitting on top of the elephant here. And what is the rational side of the brain? Well, really, it's almost a side of the brain that we use to reason with ourselves, sort of provide more clear, sort of logical options. It's more or less like evidence-based and quite decision-making side of the brain. So things that, if you're sort of tuning into your rational side of the brain, things that you might think might be such as, to be successful, I need to do X, Y, and Z, or today I need to do this. It's very much using experience and almost creating lists to sort of like put that part of the brain into its own box. So like I said there, it's very much a rational thinking side of the brain. It's very much evidence-based. It's a decision maker, but it also uses evidence or what's been good and what's been bad to help make decisions. And in the book that I'll refer to you in a minute, they kind of call that the bright spots. So the rider can see the bright spots instead of the elephant, and those bright spots are referring to things that have worked in the past or which hasn't worked in the past to help almost shape that path to take the elephant down. So that's one side of your brain, the rational side of the brain. And as I talk about that might resonate with some of you. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, that's how I think, that's how I tend to do things. Or we look at the elephant in this case, which is our emotional side of the brain. Now this side of the brain is, well, first and foremost, it's our 10-ton elephant. And it's very much referring to things here as such as like instincts and impulses and reactions. And I can almost think of a few of you here, which I know, that's the way that you work, and it's not saying, what I'm not saying here is right or wrong. What I'm presenting to you here now is a metaphor of behavior change. If you just almost start to think about and almost make sense of maybe, why or how you do things. And then from there, you can start to, understand yourself maybe a little bit better, and then make some required changes from there, or some actions from there. And the emotional brain is very much saying to yourself, well, you've had a hard day, just go and chill, or I can't do tonight's session because of X, Y, and Z, or I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to do it, or I don't enjoy it, therefore I'm not going to do it. And it's very much that taken over, if you will. And what we're talking about here is that, it's a 10K elephant. So I propose the question is, well, who's really in control? We might perceive that the rider is in control of the elephant, the rational side of the brain. But what about when that 10K emotional elephant is kicking off? Which side of the brain is going to win? And you probably just said the answer out loud or thought about it in your head. Well, of course, it's almost that 10K elephant. It's that emotional side of the brain. As soon as you get home from a long day at work, and you've had a shit day at work, and then your partner gives you jip, and then the kids are on top of your case, and then almost that emotional side of the brain tends to kick in. Well, what's going to happen? Well, we end up making decisions that maybe we regret later, or maybe we end up making decisions which, in the long run, don't serve us very well, and then we almost give ourselves that sense of guilt, or we feel frustrated because we set ourselves up at the start of January to achieve X, Y, and Z, but we're struggling to control that elephant or that emotional brain. So from there, it's almost like, well, how do you start to control that elephant? And it's very much stuff that I've talked about before, and this is just a different way of saying it. So presenting it in a different way, I'm hoping that maybe it resonates with different people and hopefully sparks some different ideas and some different thoughts. But maybe a good place to start is, well, think about it as an elephant. The elephant gets spooked easily. So making big sort of drastic changes aren't probably, or may not be, the best way to go about things. You want to keep things small. You want to keep things manageable. So you're not sort of overloading or overwhelming yourself, because remember, your health and fitness is just one sort of area of your responsibilities, whether you've got career responsibilities, parental responsibilities, whatever else your responsibilities are, we want to make sure that it's getting managed. The elephant is very much motivated by emotional discomfort. So what I mean by that is using emotion as a key driving force, which I'm going to touch on a little bit more shortly, as a key driving force to spark some change. So perhaps thinking, well, where am I now? January's been okay, but maybe it's not as good as I wanted it to be. Well, if I carry on doing what I'm doing and not quite getting the results that I want, where am I going to be come summer? Where am I going to be come June if I don't change where I am now? And that provides a little bit of emotional discomfort, because it's almost like, oh shit, I need to give myself a kick up the arse. And that becomes a good driving force. And then it's also that third point there, which I've touched on, is almost like shaping the path. How do you shape that path for the rider to have full control of that elephant without spooking that elephant? And it's touching on things like what obstacles might be in your way. So as you move into February, what things might crop up, what, work meetings might crop up, or what family situations might crop up. Thinking about that sort of stuff and how you shape your environment. So when it comes to your workouts, are you making sure you're organized? Have you got things booked in? Have you got the equipment? Have you reserved the room? Are you booking at a suitable time so you're not going to get distracted by work? But then also to come back to previous webinars that I've touched on. In week one, remember this is all on our YouTube channel, but in week one I very much spoke about almost setting yourself up. We looked at things like the Ball Ache scale and touching on your non-negotiables and making sure you're setting yourself up properly and being honest with yourself. We looked at setting goals appropriately, and I spoke about that whole sat-nav metaphor, using my TomTom theory, and yes, having your outcome, your big goal that you wanted to achieve for a month, but then how do you sort of navigate and direct yourself there? And we spoke about process goals. And then we also spoke about different engines. So if you now got your outcome, you know where you're going to go. Well, how do you get yourself there? And we looked at engine number one being exercise. And we also looked at engine number two being your nutrition. We touched on a few different ideas there. And then we also spoke about, well, maybe combining those two engines, doing a little bit of exercise stuff, but also doing a little bit of nutrition, or vice versa. You might just want to just look at a little bit of exercise stuff for the month and then just look at a little bit of nutrition stuff. It's making sure you're setting yourself up and making sure you're not spooking that elephant. So, a bit of a, hopefully maybe a different way of thinking about things there, looking at that two sides of the brain, your rational, your emotional side of the brain, how you're going to control that elephant as we move into February, alongside those goals that you're setting yourself. And hopefully we can kind of get ourselves set up on some solid pillars, whilst at the same time using a little bit of feedback, reviewing ourselves and seeing how we got on in January. And this is the book I'm talking about. It was recommended to me when I first started getting into all this sort of stuff about 11 years ago. So I'd recommend it for some of you book readers out there, and you're into this sort of behavioral change psychology stuff. It's a similar approach to the Chimp Paradox, but this is by Chip and Dan Heath, and it's called Switch: How to Change Things When Change is Hard. And that's one of the first books that I kind of got into when I started looking at all this sort of coaching stuff. And this quote that comes from it: sparks come from emotion, not information. I'll say that again. Sparks come from emotion, not information. And I think the reason why I like that quote is because I think sometimes we take in all this information, such as listening to me every week. You take in all this information, and I love that you're taking in this information because you're wanting to get better, you're wanting to improve. But it's the emotional drivers that quite often cause us to change. So for example, in January, we've all had Christmas, we've all been out of routine, we all feel a bit crap. It's linking into that I feel a certain way, which almost causes you to change. It's not because, I said, let's look at some process goals, or let's look at, goal setting or the ball ache scale. It's not so much that information that causes you to change. It's almost the emotion as to why you want to change, and digging into that a little bit further is a good place to go, but it's not probably not the best time to do it tonight. I'm going to present a little bit more information, but what I recommend is at the weekend, maybe you dig a little bit deeper into this quote: sparks come from emotion, not information. And a good place to start is like your 3 Ps to aligning with your goal. And this is in a specific order as well, and touching or developing that notion further of like emotion. A great place to start is like why you do something. Okay, I think a lot of us know the what's and the hows we're going to do something. So a lot of us know what let's just say for February, what we're going to do. I'm going to do some Zoom sessions. I'm going to do some runs. I'm going to go out for some walks. And how am I going to do it? Right, well, I'm going to book in on the app. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to organize my dumbbells. We know the what's and the hows, but really like why, like a deeper level of why to really sort of hit that true purpose of why you're going to do it helps to spark change. And I know it sounds all a little bit like airy fairy and all that sort of stuff, but the reason why we do things is because one reason why we do things because they sort of hit certain values in our identity of who we are as a person. I'll give you a little brief story or a brief example of like why we do sort of things. Someone might ask me, why do I do a webinar on a Wednesday night to you guys? And if I went down like deep into it, for a lot of you guys who know my background story, 9 years old, and I went through my whole cancer treatment, that set me up for a positive place. I'm very fortunate enough to say that, like that for me, that experience was super positive, and that kind of led me down a lifestyle of like health and fitness. Because I've kind of gone through that experience of going through my cancer treatment, it led me to a place where for the rest of my life, it was all about like the health side of things. I played sport and I achieved a good level of performance of things, but I went through the rest of my life, within my education and my personal life, always focusing heavily on the health side of things. And the short answer is to why I do a webinar on a Wednesday evening is because I want to help people like you push away any visits to the hospital or a doctor. If I can help my local community, such as you guys, make better decisions in terms of your health and fitness, make better exercise decisions, make better nutrition decisions, be more consistent with that. That all comes from a place because I've been in a position where my health has been compromised, but fortunate enough for me, it set me up in a positive position. And now it's almost, I see it as almost like a pay it forward type mindset. And the reason why I get up early every day and spend all my whole day doing all this sort of stuff is for that particular reason, because I've had that experience, and now I passionately believe in trying to help everyone, and I'll stand by anyone to try and, if they're willing to do what they can to get themselves a bit healthier or fitter, that's why I do it. And that's obviously a deep reason, but I'm asking you guys, maybe that's where you want to sort of dive into if you're struggling for motivation or to try and keep things up. It almost comes into your, like for me, my health and fitness is part of who I am. If it's not, I'm not saying that's what it needs to be for you, but I'm just saying it's part of my value. So therefore, that's why I do it every day. Like I couldn't imagine a life without it. Now, it doesn't have to be the same for you guys, but that's the position you want to get into. You really want to think about why you want to do things. Do you want to set a good example to your family and to your kids, perhaps? Those sort of things is what we want to touch on. I think I put the nail in the coffin on that one. Let me move on. Number 2 is priorities. So once you kind of figured out like your purpose and your why and why you actually want to do something, going pretty deep with it, you then want to touch on like your priorities. And I address this in a different way with the ball ache scale on week 1, but really thinking about like maybe thinking about January. How did January go? and then maybe thinking, right, well, I maybe tried to do too much in January. I tried to do too much in the exercise front. I had 5 things there, and I had 3 things on the nutritional side of things. Right, in February, I'm just going to do 1 thing from exercise and 1 thing from nutrition, and maybe just get your priorities a little bit straighter. You could almost view February as a positive to get you set up for February. It's almost like your trial run. Right, I did this right in January. I did this wrong. Let me reset my priorities based on the experience, based on those bright spots that I had in January, and kind of get those priorities straight. And in that way, you don't overload yourself with too many jobs to do. From there, you want to get yourself a plan in place. Now that comes back to, well, once you've got your kind of, you know, your why and your kind of values and why you're trying to achieve something and that purpose. From there, you look at your priorities. You've kind of got them in place. You've got a few things on your mind. Well, then you start to plan things, and we'll come to that shortly at the end of this webinar with a brief exercise. But also using things like the process goals that I spoke about last time, and using them as your weekly actions is a good place to go. Okay, so there's a little bit of like the theoretical type stuff. And then here are sort of 6 key questions. And like I said at the start of this, reviewing yourself is certainly something to do with a clear head and a bit of time. So what I recommend that you do is you either write these questions down as I go, or you can pick them back up off the YouTube link once I've uploaded to YouTube tomorrow, or you can use your phone and just take a quick snapshot of the screen. But these are things that we do personally, or I do personally, with the business side of things, and I believe it gives you a good bit of clarity and a good stepping stone as we move forward. And if your goals are quite important to you, if your health and fitness side of things, then again, I would recommend you take the time to go through these questions. So I'll run through them and I'll talk through them as we go. So first one, nice and simple, is what went well. You know, just get a pen and paper when you do this and just write it down. Just start writing. Don't start, giving yourself, getting too worked up about it. Just start writing stuff down and see what goes, and just start making that list. And as soon as you start writing, you'll generate a little bit of flow. Number 2, what do I know I should be doing? However, I'm not being consistent enough. So 1 to ponder on. What do you know you should be doing? However, I'm not being consistent enough. And I'm sure me just saying that out, some thoughts are probably going into your head. Number 3, what am I putting off that I know I need to start or do? So what are you putting off? What tasks or actions? And at the moment, we're talking about health and fitness. Let's not get too carried away. What are you putting off that you need to start or do? Number 4, what am I not doing so well? And what do I need to do to fix this? Okay, and it's okay to kind of, if you've got a list of things that, like, remove the judgment, just write anything that comes down to your head of what you're not doing so well. And if it's a long list, like, it's a long list, but at least you're being honest with yourself. At least you've got a starting point. At least you've got that stepping stone. And then have a think about, what do you need to do to fix this? Do you need to speak to someone? Do you need some help? Do you need to spend a little bit more attention on things? Do you need to maybe not overload yourself with too much stuff? There's plenty of opportunity for ideas on that one. Number 5, what are the major obstacles that are stalling your progress? Maybe looking back through the month, what sort of things came up that are stalling your progress? So were technical difficulties getting in the way of your Zoom sessions, or were timings weren't so great? So if work is unreliable at the moment because everything's gone crazy, do you need to book your sessions earlier so it's done and dusted out the way? Therefore, you need to get to bed earlier. Therefore, you need to be stricter with your, your going to bed routine, all that sort of stuff. What are the major obstacles stalling your progress? And then the last one is, what do I actually want to achieve next month? That's just kind of setting yourself up with some ideas for February. And again, just list it off. If it's a big list, it doesn't matter. Just get pen to paper, just get some ideas down. And then from there, a good little exercise to do, and this is the final part of tonight, is once you've kind of thought about things and maybe gone through those 6 questions, a nice little exercise to do. This is one that doing the coaching, the nutrition coaching with the members sometimes. It's what we call the four circle exercise, funnily enough. So you've got your outcome here at the top, and I just wrote down like a brief example here. So your outcome in February might be, I don't know, to run 12 times or to run 5K. So then you bring that round. So what do I need to do this month to make sure I run my 12 sessions or run 5K? Well, this month I need to run 3 times a week. All right, okay, well, if I need to run 3 times a week, what do I need to do this week? Right, well, this heavily comes back to your process goals. This week I'll book in some runs. Okay, so if you come into the run club, I'll book in on the app. All right, or maybe I'll speak to a friend because I know he or she would like to do this with me, and he or she works well as an accountability partner. I potentially need to have a structured plan. Okay, and if it is running in this case, well, we've got that for you. Maybe I need to get some running shoes. That's me. I'm putting my hand up on that one. I'm definitely running in the wrong shoes at the moment, which is I need to sort. Or maybe I just need to book in at a suitable time. So they're like your process goals. What can you do this week? And that moves around to your final circle. What can I do today? Or what can you do like right now? Like if you were really going to take action, you've had a few ideas at the back of this. Like what could you do right now at the back end of this webinar? Well, you could go and put your running shoes right next to the door. All right. Like even that's just a start for some people. Like, and I think that's a good point to finish on is like, even if it feels like super easy, that's almost like the point of a lot of this goal setting stuff. I would rather your goals feel super duper easy for you, so you've got a high confidence level of completing them. That's a great place to start, especially if you feel like January didn't quite go as well for you. Like starting with a super easy goal, so your high confidence level of completing it is high. Therefore, you're gonna get the ball rolling nicely, and from there, once you've got your ball rolling, you can start worrying about maybe some other goals and whatever. But right now, off the back of tonight, thinking about some goals. Depending on how January went for you, set yourself up with some really super easy goals just to get the ball rolling, so you've got a high confidence level. All right, and that's my content for you tonight. So we touched on that elephant and rider principle, and hopefully that resonated with you, and you thought about that rational side of the brain, you thought about maybe the emotional side of the brain, and then if you do feel like that the emotional side of that elephant is getting a better view sometimes, how can you almost shape that path as you move into February? And thinking about the obstacles that are coming in your way, how you're also going to shape your environment. You can touch on the previous webinars that we looked at that are all on the YouTube page. I spoke about that book. That might be something you want to look at, the Switch book by the Heath brothers. We spoke about those three P's to realigning your goals. So start with your purpose, get deep with your why, and actually start hitting into your values of who you are as a person. Then we looked at your priorities, think about your non-negotiables as you move into February, and then start to plan your stepping stones as we move into February. Then we touched on those 6 questions, so hopefully you've got them. Otherwise, you can just sort of go back through the webinar, and then maybe to close it off, if you really want to put the nail in the coffin on some of the planning side of things and the reviewing side of things, is you focus on maybe one habit for February and do your 4 circle exercise. All right. So that's it for tonight. What did we do? We did just over half an hour. I hope that's kind of all resonated and you can take something away from that.